The finale to Loki Season 2 has just floored me. It blew my mind in so many different ways, and there are so many layers to this story that unravel in this final episode and sets up so many things for the future, as well as just fulfilling character arcs and character stories. It's just a massive achievement. We're going to break down the episode. I'm going to go through my thoughts on everything that happened and what's going to happen next in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with this and the Marvels. And if you guys want to see my breakdown on the Marvels, I just watched it. Hit that subscribe button and join us on the road to 1,000 subs. It's free. But look, with that out of the way, let's talk about Loki Season 2's finale because, wow. So Loki has the power to essentially time travel now. He spends the first half of this episode going back to the TVA and trying so many times to fix what happened with Victor Timely when he went out to repair the time loom. And this was really fascinating because it was very fast paced and a very electric opening to the episode. And they do one of these things that they did with Avengers Endgame where there's a time jump, but it's not a time jump in the traditional sense where it's like, oh, 5 years later. Loki needs to learn the entirety of quantum mechanics and physics, and well, he spends centuries doing this. So with Loki's new time traveling capabilities, he's just becoming exponentially more powerful, more knowledgeable, and more of a hero. And I think the hero aspect is 100% the biggest concept, the biggest theme from this episode, and I just cannot wait to talk about it. It was really fascinating seeing Loki try multiple times in different points in time to see what went wrong and how they can fix it, and sort of finishing characters' lines as they were speaking them. All of it was very unique, all of it was very telling at how Loki is becoming this more than a god figure. So this goes on for about like 15 minutes and Loki realizes it's not this point in time that needs to be adjusted. I forgot to turn on the TV, give me 1 second. There, now you have the animated Secret Wars playing in the back. But Loki realizes, look, I need to go back to where this all started, where it all technically went wrong. So he travels to the very end of Loki Season 1, and we see what happens in the end of Season 1 play out, but we see our current version of Loki jump into the body of his previous self. He is desperately trying to convince Sylvie not to kill He Who Remains. He tries over and over and over again, and all of a sudden, He Who Remains pauses time. He pauses Sylvie so him and Loki can have a discussion about what's really going on. You see, we come to the realization that all of this, everything that has happened, has been planned out by He Who Remains as a fail-safe method for him to stay alive. The temporal loom is designed to keep one strand of time, the sacred timeline, alive while keeping all of the other multiverse lines from existing. And when Loki and Victor Timely try and fix the temporal loom to allow the multiverse, to allow all of these branches of time, well, it breaks and explodes. But He Who Remains tells Loki that is what is supposed to happen. He set this in place where the time loom is a failsafe, so if there are multiple universes, all of those universes die and just the sacred timeline lives. So no matter what Loki does or what Victor Timely does, it is designed to fail. And this time loop keeps happening over and over again, and they keep getting brought back to the moment where Sylvie is killing He Who Remains. I loved this scene with He Who Remains and Loki. Again, amazing performance by both Tom Hiddleston and Jonathan Majors, playing a different version of Kang. We've seen Victor Timely, we've seen Kang the Conqueror. Now we get another play of He Who Remains, and just the way he talks to Loki is very sort of passive and aggressive at the same time. He tries to justify to Loki, and he sort of tries to convince him that what he's doing is the right thing. He Who Remains is saying, hey, I keep one timeline in check, that way all of those lives can live their safe and peaceful lives, and I can't allow all of the other multiverses, all the other universes to exist because all of the other versions of myself will cause a war. But Loki, on the other hand, has seen all of these different timelines, all of the lives that have been lived on these other timelines besides the sacred one, and just can't justify killing all of those timelines, all of those people, just to save one. He Who Remains gives Loki two options. One, you keep this sacred timeline alive. Let He Who Remains continue doing his job, keeping one timeline, allowing everyone to have a happy life on that timeline. Or Loki can blow up the time loom and cause all of the multiverses to exist, and inevitably the Great War happens. He Who Remains tells Loki there is really no option here. You have to let me continue doing this work because the Great War will destroy everything. You're going to lose so many lives, so many universes will die. I'd rather just keep one universe, one line of time going on. But Loki says we have to try. We have to have hope. We have to give people a chance. He's willing to take that chance for other people to live. There's also some timey-wimey stuff going on here at the same time. Loki learns to stop time. Loki learns to reverse time in this episode. He says to He Who Remains, why do you think this is the first time we're having this discussion? If this is a time loop, we've been here before. We've learned all of these things. You've tried convincing me before. So with this, Loki goes back even further and has a chat with Mobius right when he first enters the TVA. We have a fantastic scene between Mobius and Loki where Mobius tells the story about him learning about the sacred timeline, learning about the harshness it is to be a hunter, what it means to protect these people and the timeline. He tells Loki you have to keep the big picture in mind. That's the most important lesson I think he learns from this. The big picture is more important than the details. He then travels to the end of last week's episode where he talks to Sylvie and says the only way that anything and everything can be saved is if Sylvie doesn't kill He Who Remains. Sylvie tells Loki there is so much destruction, so much injustice down on the sacred timeline. Is that really just the only one worth saving? Loki then thinks, wait, what if someone can replace He Who Remains and make things better? Loki realizes there is only one option out of this, and that is for him to go and fix the temporal loom instead of Victor Timely, to sacrifice himself in order to have all of the timelines exist instead of just having one, and to beat He Who Remains. In one of the most epic scenes from the MCU period, we see Loki walk across this bridge, similar to the Bifrost, a complete arc for the character. When we first walked through the Bifrost in Thor 1, Loki is a villain. Now he's walking across this time bridge, a hero. We see him transform into his original costume, the temporal loom explodes, and Loki himself, one by one, grabs all of the branches of time, grabs everything in really, well, existence. He grabs all of the timelines, and a tear comes through reality, and we see the Citadel at the end of time. The visuals here were just so stunning. Seeing the timelines, all of these different universes turn into the outfit of Loki, turning into his cape, and he's taking all of these timelines and controlling all of them so they can all exist, and he finally sits on his throne. Loki has wanted a throne from day one. His first goal in Avengers 1 was to finally sit on a throne. In fact, he wanted that even in the first Thor movie. He goes from a character who wants a throne, who can't get a throne, to not wanting a throne, to being the one person who has to deal with the burden of sitting on the throne. One of Loki's first memorable quotes from the MCU was, "I am Loki and I am burdened with glorious purpose." This whole idea of a burden, Loki is sacrificing not only himself, but his entire existence to keep everybody else alive. He has tried so hard over the years to become a hero, going from that complete villain to an anti-hero, to an ally of the heroes, to the biggest hero himself. He is replacing the devil. He's replacing He Who Remains on the throne, allowing all of these timelines, all of these universes to coexist. Yes, there's going to be trouble. Yes, He Who Remains said all of his variants, all of the different Kangs are going to now exist. But Loki has hope, and Loki thinks he and all of the other heroes that we know from all of our different universes can stop him. We pan out from the Citadel and we see all of the branches of time forming Yggdrasil, the world tree in Norse mythology. This was such a beautiful symbolic representation of the world tree. In Norse mythology, the world tree represents the pathways and the positioning of all the different realms, which we've touched on in Norse mythology in the MCU, but now seeing all of the timelines in the universe forming into this giant tree with all of the branches of time was just gorgeous and poetic in the best way possible. He's done it. He's stopped the time loop. He's stopped He Who Remains from controlling everything and having only one timeline. The multiverse now exists, meaning everything up until this point, everything that is multiverse related, Spider-Man No Way Home, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, even some events that happen in the movie The Marvels, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, all of that stuff happens after this because all of this stuff can now happen. So now that Loki is sitting on this time throne, all of the multiverses can exist. Therefore, we get all of these things, and we actually see the TVA notice the He Who Remains variants throughout the timelines. Their goal is to watch all of the variants of Kang and make sure none of them do anything too drastic. And what do you know? We get a callback to Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania when they say, hey, there is a Kang variant causing some issues, but the Avengers, they fixed it. The Avengers obviously just being Ant-Man, but it's really cool getting this in confirmation that Loki, the TVA, have monitored this and they're watching it. I'm just very, very impressed with the writing and the symbolism in this show as a whole. I've loved this show. This is my favorite MCU show, period. And don't even get me started on the score of this episode. It was so grand. It was so just dramatic. It was perfect. We see that the TVA is now reformed. It's a democracy now. There's not just one person at the top, and we go through the different timelines seeing what has changed. We see the young version of Victor Timely never got the manual for the TVA, therefore Victor Timely does not exist anymore. We see Ravonna is actually in the void because she got pruned, and we see Alioth arrive next to her. What's gonna happen with her, I don't know, but she is complete trouble. Lastly, we find out Mobius is going to return to the timeline. The one thing he didn't want to do because he was so terrified of finding out a life on his sacred timeline was something worth living, he finds it out, and he realizes, yeah, this is what is worth protecting. He's leaving the TVA, but I don't think that this is the last time we're going to see Mobius. In the future, we're probably going to see him maybe in Deadpool 3 or maybe further on down the line. We end the episode with a beautiful shot of Loki staring through all the timelines, smiling. While he did technically lose the one thing he wanted, he lost his friends, he lost the sense of being together, he's completely alone, he knows that all of them are safe, and that's all that matters to him. He is a complete reformed hero. A beautiful, beautiful episode, and it really just seals the book on Loki for now. It's not really a happy ending, but it's very satisfying and understandable why Loki has to do the thing that he's doing. There are so many rumors going around of what this is going to entail in the future, and we know the TVA is going to be playing a prominent role in Deadpool 3. Now, what does this mean? Is there a variant of Kang that comes to power later on down the timeline where Loki, the master of time, the god of stories, Avenger Prime, is going to have to take heroes from every different timeline to fight all of the versions of Kang in Kang Dynasty? I'm going to be making multiple videos on what this means and what Loki's new power in the MCU actually entails for the future of all the projects and movies coming out. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel because I have so many thoughts running through my head. I most importantly want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so leave a comment down below. I read every single one and I most likely will respond. I'm not afraid to say it right now. I think Loki might be one of the most well-developed characters in the MCU. 10 years ago, the number one, the first villain, the first big villain of the Marvel Universe, is now one of the greatest heroes. I mean, go back and watch these movies and shows and tell me I'm wrong. I'm so impressed with this show, and I don't think they're going to be doing a season 3. This was sort of a chapter 1 with season 1, chapter 2, half of books closing together, completely finishing the story. I don't think they're going to do a season 3, but I don't think this is the very end of Loki. I'm very impressed with this. I'm very satisfied, and well, I just can't wait to see what's next for all of these characters. Again, I just watched The Marvels. I'm going to be posting my review on that very soon along with a breakdown, so please subscribe to the channel and be on the lookout for that. Until next time, I will see you all very soon.